Welcome back to the Cap Report. I hope y'all are doing well. In this video, we're going to be talking UFC 279, a little preview and predictions, and this fight week has been chaotic to say the least. From Khamzat Chimaev and Paulo Costa having a run-in, the press conference getting canceled due to fighting backstage is, what I believe it was, right? Now all three of the top fights have been rebooked, shuffled around after Khamzat Chimaev missed weight by 7.5 pounds. Now for the main event, instead of Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz, it's Nate Diaz versus Tony Ferguson. In the co-main, instead of Li Jingliang versus Tony Ferguson, we have Khamzat Chimaev versus Kevin Holland. And finally in the featured bout, Daniel Rodriguez will face Li Jingliang, which was previously supposed to be Kevin Holland versus Daniel Rodriguez. Ironically, most of the rebooked fights are better than the original ones, but we got the fights that we should have gotten. Nate Diaz fighting someone from his era, not just to be slaughtered. I think Kevin Holland versus Khamzat Chimaev could be a ton of fun too as well. And I will say also, it's so funny, I almost stayed up all night last night to make this video, and for some reason I didn't, and thank God I didn't, because I would have been punching the air after what happened today. I would have been so mad if I had spent hours making the video and then woke up, Khamzat missed weight, and they rebooked all the fights. That would have been so frustrating. I had started writing the script, but after I saw that he was late on weight, was projected to miss weight, I was like, let me wait, ride this out, see what happens. Going ahead and getting into the card, we open the card with the light heavyweight division as Johnny Walker faces Ian Cutelaba. I think this can be a really fun fight that we'll likely see a finish in. Granted, the last time I said that we didn't, with Paulo Costa and Luke Rockhold, but these are two guys who are looking to get back into the win column, as Walker's coming off a 2-fight losing streak, including losses to Thiago Santos and Jamal Hill, and Cutelaba's coming off of a submission loss to Ryan Spann. There's quite a size difference between these two, as Walker stands 5 inches taller than Cutelaba and holds a 7-inch reach advantage. So Cutelaba's going to have to get inside to really do anything in this fight. But if he can, I really don't trust Johnny Walker's chin. I honestly could see this fight playing out a lot like Johnny Walker's last one. Cutelaba could exert a ton of offensive pressure, allowing him to get inside and land big in exchanges. However, I don't trust Cutelaba's fight IQ nearly as much as Jamal Hill's, and I could see him getting hit by that head kick that Walker was attempting to draw Hill into in the last fight. Looking for a path to victory for Johnny Walker is a little difficult. As I mentioned before, his chin concerns me a lot, and I would think that he should try and keep his distance since he has such a reach advantage in the striking. I think it could be dependent on what Cutelaba we see, a wrestling focused one or a striking focused one. If it's wrestling, I think that Walker is so explosive that he's ultimately going to gas out early from that wrestling. But if it's a striking focused Cutelaba, then I think that he should probably try and poke from afar with kicks early and often, get those leg kicks going, but ultimately look for that head kick. Try and use Cutelaba's aggression against him, get him to walk into something big. Switching over to Cutelaba's side, I think that he has some options with what he can do. I think wrestling early on could be a really good tactic to use, trying to take some of that explosiveness out of Walker's game before he really gets into the striking with him. I think the heavy pressure will be important, but he needs to be defensively sound in doing so, as we said, not walk into something dangerous. I think if he's able to gas Walker out with wrestling for about a round and a half, he has a lot more leeway in the striking following that. It will allow him to open himself up more and throw more and not have to be so defensive. I don't think he needs to worry about shot selection too much. I think he just needs to hit Walker's chin. Ian Cutelaba is a -200 favorite and Walker's a +170 favorite, and I'm not opposed to those odds. Cutelaba should be the favorite in my opinion. Ultimately, I'm gonna pick Ian Cutelaba by second round knockout. I see him walking Johnny Walker down with heavy pressure, ultimately getting inside and finding that knockout shot. Next, we move to the bantamweight division, sorta, where Irene Aldana takes on Macy Chiasson. I don't know if I'm saying that right, to be honest. Aldana's coming off of a win over Yana Kunikaya, and Chiasson's coming off of a win over Norma Dumont. The weird thing is, I think they both missed weight, so it's technically a catchweight fight, but they're doing it at featherweight. This one's confusing, so I don't know how relevant it really is to bantamweight anymore, because this could have been a fight. I don't know if they're still considering it relevant to bantamweight, then it could be a fight that pushes one of these two into a #1 contender fight, but now it's kind of hard to say. Chiasson's coming down from featherweight, and Aldana's fighting for the first time in over a year, where she missed weight in her last fight too. This card in general had so many issues with people making weight. It adds interesting elements to this fight. Chiasson's 2 inches taller, holds about a 4-inch reach advantage. Despite that, she'll likely want to be the one who's pressuring a bit more and cutting distance. If Aldana is able to find her range and start landing, I think she could drop Chiasson. Chiasson's put some nice runs of wins together in her career, but she always seems to slip up when stepping up in the competition, which I think could happen here. Aldana's a -170 favorite and Chiasson's a +145 underdog, and honestly I think that Aldana should be more of a favorite. I see Aldana being able to control the range and the pace of the fight, which will allow her to land big and find a first round knockout. We move on to the first of the altered fights. We have a catchweight bout between 14th ranked welterweight Li Jingliang versus Daniel Rodriguez at what I think is supposed to be 180 pounds, but it's kind of a welterweight fight. It's two welterweights just at a higher weight. Li Jingliang is coming off of a second round knockout win over Muslim Salikov, and Rodriguez is on a 3-fight win streak. He has a finish in between 2 decisions, and he's won 6 of his last 7 actually. This really is a fight at welterweight, as I said, but Kevin Rodriguez I think he took his initial fight with Holland 2 weeks on notice, and that's why I was at 180 originally. Now we have Li Jiling having to switch opponents last minute as well, so it makes sense at 180. That aside, this fight should be a banger. I will say that Li kind of got hoed the most out of the opponent shuffling in this card. I really hope he gets a bag for taking this fight, because he's fighting a guy who's basically a weight class above him now. Lesser known opponent, a lesser known but more difficult opponent, so I'm hoping that man got paid to make things work for the UFC. It's a little hard to judge, but I feel like this is actually more of a difficult matchup for Li stylistically as well. I'm curious as to how Rodriguez will look in this fight. He hasn't fought since last year, and he really got training again. I think he said he really got training into fight shape like about a month ago. He only took the original fight on 2 weeks notice, and I feel like all of this somewhat stacks against him. You know, we'll ask questions of if he has any ring rust. He had surgery on his left hand like 3 times in his time off, so you know, it's a little bit of a concern. That being said, he's got great boxing and does a great job of mixing his offense all over the place. Leg kicks, landing to the body, up high. His ability to move in and out of range at different angles is amazing as well. I think he's the better boxer of the two here. That being said, I do think Li will have the power advantage, or Li would have the power advantage at welterweight, though it's a little more tricky here because of the 10-pound weight advantage that Daniel Rodriguez basically has. Li's got 10 knockdowns, which is tied for the most from any active fighter in the welterweight division. He's a patient fighter who can walk you down. He's got great shot selection against the cage, and his overhand right is amazing, super powerful. Looking at paths to victory, we're going to start with Li Jiling. I think there's a couple different routes he could take. He could keep the fight standing. I just think there's more risk there a little bit. He gives a ton of looks and feints when standing, and I think that that could be key to setting up and landing his overhand right. He could look to clinch, which could give him options to either take the fight to the ground or cut the distance and be able to land damage, and that overhand right would be a great option when disengaging from the clinch as well. I think it would be beneficial for him to look to take the fight to the ground at some point. I think that he looks more comfortable on the ground than Rodriguez does. Granted, Rodriguez does have some defensive submission like capabilities, but when on the ground, I think Li could land some heavy ground and pound as well. I think taking the fight to the ground could open up more of his striking as well, giving him options, you know, more options and feints to provide. Looking at possible paths to victory for Rodriguez, he's going to be the bigger guy here and should want to keep it standing. I don't think there's much outside of his normal game he needs to do to win, as long as the fight stays standing. It's really going to depend on how he fares in his exchanges with Li. Rodriguez can throw some great combinations. He'll just have to look out for that overhand right, but I don't really think there's that much more to it for him here. Rodriguez opens up as the favorite here at -155, Li as a +135 underdog. I understand why the odds are like this. Rodriguez is going to be the bigger guy here. Stylistically, it's not a bad matchup for him. I, however, am going to take Li in this fight. I'm not sure what to expect in terms of how Rodriguez will look. I think we could see some ring rust here, and he hasn't fought in a year, and he's coming off of multiple surgeries, and he's only really getting back to training camp, only getting like into fighting shape like about a month ago. I think there'll be quite a bit of exchanges in the first round that Rodriguez will be able to look a little better in, but I think that come the second round, he'll gas a bit. Li will kind of figure out his timing, and he'll be able to land his right hand, finding a second round knockout. Now we move to the new co-main event, another catchweight fight that's really a welterweight fight, as Kevin Holland takes on Khamzat Chimaev. And let's just say Khamzat is very lucky that there was a catchweight fight and multiple welterweight fights on this card, otherwise he wouldn't be fighting tomorrow. I believe this is a 5-round co-main event as well, which is, you know, really interesting. It opens things up as to what could happen here, and it kind of benefits Holland, I think, more than Khamzat. Holland's running a 2-fight win streak, both by finish, since his drop down from middleweight. Third-ranked Khamzat is undefeated, winning 4 straight in the UFC, coming most recently off of a decision win over Gilbert Burns. I think there's a ton of intriguing factors here. Khamzat seemed to be humbled somewhat in his last win, and this week he seemed to have a really odd energy to him. It could be the pressure of his first main event so early on in his career, although he lost it now after missing weight by 7.5 pounds. And then he responded to the situation with, "Not too bad." I don't know how this will all play into things. Supposedly he's got some kind of injury or situation going on that he had to stop cutting weight for. I don't really know all the details to that, but I do think that this all could be a factor. Although this is a little armchair psychologist territory, it is what it is. Burns got Khamzat to get off of his game plan and get emotional in their fight, and I think that Kevin Holland could do that as well, much to Holland's benefit. And I wonder how Holland's going to approach this fight. You know, the narrative, and you know, there's truth to it against him, is that grapplers really give him issues, wrestlers give him issues, and we saw it at the top of the middleweight division when he fought Marvin Vettori and Derek Brunson. But he does have some solid offensive grappling skills, particularly in his submissions. He's a BJJ black belt, but obviously he would prefer to have this fight standing, and I honestly think that his big mouth might be able to do it. He's got a pretty big reach advantage at 6 inches here. I think his 81-inch reach is like the highest out of any welterweight. I could be wrong on that one, but I want to say it is. But I do think he has to be a little bit careful blitzing forward with flurries of strikes. I think that he could run into a double leg very easily that way. That being said, if he can keep the fight standing, Khamzat is there to be hit. He keeps his head on the center line at pretty much all times, and Burns was really able to hurt him and drop him a couple times because of that. Looking at paths to victory for Holland, I think there's 2 main ways he does it. One is if Khamzat sticks to what will likely be his game plan of trying to get Holland to the ground. So the path to victory here for Holland would be chasing neck chokes, throwing shots that either counter level changes or deter them as well, like knees and uppercuts. And I think that the other path might already kind of be in the works, and that is to get into Khamzat's head and get Khamzat to strike with him. As I said, I think Khamzat is there to get hit, and I'd say that Holland is the better striker as well. His range can allow him to poke from distance early, and I think that his length can allow him to throw a lot of leg kicks there as well. If he's able to land those leg kicks, take the power out of Khamzat's hands, I think it makes it even more, beneficial to him in the striking game. For Khamzat, I think quite clearly the path to victory here is going to be get the fight to the ground and rain down those shots on Holland. He has to keep his head clear. He hasn't seemed to be able to do all week. If he chooses to stand, he'll have to get inside, which I don't think will be an issue since he's such a pressuring fighter, but he'll have to be careful not to walk onto the wrong punches. Holland likes to blitz forward, which will give him opportunities to counter as well, but I don't think that Khamzat has seen nearly the level of offensive output that Holland will likely bring to this fight. Looking at the odds here, Khamzat's a minus 580 favorite and apparently opened at minus 1,000, and Holland is a plus 44 underdog, which I'm gonna be real, I don't agree with. I think Khamzat should be the favorite. Stylistically, this is a great fight for him. However, I think he should be closer to like minus 300. Minus 1,000 is insane to me. And here's what I think will happen. I think Khamzat will open up the fight looking for and finding the takedown that he needs. He'll land a lot of damage, but Holland will give him some fits early on, and I think that he'll be talking nonstop. By the second round, you'll see Khamzat kind of bail on his game plan and stand up with Holland. He'll have some success, but he'll get tagged more by Holland and struggle dealing with his range. And then I think in the third round, we'll see more of this, and Khamzat start to fade and gas out. And in the third round, we'll see Kevin Holland win by finding a knock. Finally, we move to the main event, where Nate Diaz, in what could be his final fight in the UFC, takes on Tony Ferguson at welterweight. We've got two former Ultimate Fighter winners here. Let's be real, this is a much better opponent for Diaz, someone more from his era. It's like a legend versus legend kind of fight. This could be pretty competitive and is much more winnable for both of these guys than their previous opponents would have been. Tony Ferguson is riding a 4-fight losing streak, most recently by stunning second-round knockout from Michael Chandler. Nate Diaz is on a 2-fight losing streak himself, but most recently it was a decision loss to the new welterweight champion Leon Edwards, a fight that he kind of got dominated in, but he stole the show in the fleeting moments of the fight by rocking Edwards and choosing to laugh and point at him rather than finishing the fight, which is like such a Nate Diaz thing to do, but you gotta respect it. And I will say that I don't think Tony should be fighting this soon after such a bad knockout that he faced in his last fight. That man was out cold, and I don't know how well his chin will hold up now. That being said, the first round that Tony had versus Chandler was probably the best round we've seen from him in quite some time, so there is, room for hope. This is a fight that will likely stay standing the whole time, and both these guys have cardio for days and should be able to easily go 5 rounds. They equalize each other out in a lot of areas. The ground, both their BJJ games are great. They both clinch really well. Nate has some crazy body shots. The elbows of Tony in the clinch should probably keep him from moving into the clinch. Nate's likely the better boxer of the two, but Tony's style will match up with him in an interesting way. All the movement, the elbows, Diaz will really have to be careful about how, with how easily he gets cut. Looking at keys to victory for Tony Ferguson, I think he's going to really rely on his ability to move in and out at angles and at unique angles. I don't trust his chin holding after getting cracked so badly like that. When he got knocked out, he was out for a couple minutes, like he was out cold. I just don't know. He's had a great chin, but we've seen with some guys, once you crack it once and you've relied on your chin for so long that it will not return to the point it was before. And I don't trust his chin holding after getting cracked so badly. I think dirty boxing and, landing those elbows will be big for him. Diaz has so much scar tissue that if Tony lands enough elbows, he could probably get the fight stopped just due to the open cuts, And for Nate, as I said, he could look to clinch up here. He's strong in the clinch, can land a lot of powerful body strikes, but he might want to avoid that, as I said, because of Tony's elbows. I really think that he should try and just, get Tony into as many exchanges as he can. Combinations, just middle of the cage, just throwing at each other. Bank on his chin, outlasting Tony. So looking at the odds, Tony Ferguson's a minus 120 favorite, Nate Diaz a plus 100 favorite. Personally, I might swap those odds, but I'm not mad at them. This should be a close fight, and I think it's going to be one. I think it's going to be one of those fights where they go back and forth for a couple rounds, but ultimately, I think that Diaz will find the finish in the fourth, as I just don't trust Tony's chin against a better boxer, and at this point in his career following that knockout loss. So my pick is Diaz by 4th round knockout. And so that is my UFC 279 predictions. Let me know what y'all think. Go ahead and leave some of y'all's predictions in the comments. What do y'all think of this crazy fight week? I kind of thought this was one of the weaker cards, but now that they moved the fights around, it's better than it was before, for sure. I'm pretty excited for these fights, but as always, leave a like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. The page has been blowing up. I've gotten a couple comments in the last week or two. Super appreciate those. Means a lot. The page has been blowing up. We got 40 subscribers in the last 2 weeks, which is more than I had in 2 years. Granted, I was super inconsistent, but I'm rambling now, so appreciate y'all. Let's enjoy these fights.